Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
I am Designate Keth of the Varelian Expeditionary Fleet. Though titles feel meaningless now, this is not a report of victory. It is a warning. If this transmission reaches a high council, archive it not among our triumphs, but among our failures. Study it, remember it, because what we encountered in the Sol system cannot be understood through our doctrines of war. We believed we had seen every form of resistance the galaxy could offer. We were wrong. Our fleet entered the outer boundary of the system in perfect formation. 17 capital vessels, supported by carriers, drone swarms, and planetary suppression arrays. Our arrival was silent, masked by gravitational distortions. Standard protocol for a pre-contact subjugation. The third planet, designated Earth, was immediately identified as the center of intelligent activity. Its electromagnetic emissions were chaotic. That was the first anomaly. Their signals overlapped constantly. Thousands of languages, conflicting data streams, entertainment broadcasts interwoven with military communications. There was no clarity, no order. Our analysts struggled to separate strategic information from what appeared to be noise. At first, we assumed it was deception. But no, that chaos was genuine. A species broadcasting its own confusion into the void. Initial scans revealed something even more perplexing. No unified planetary defense. Instead, the surface was divided into territorial regions, nations they called them. Each maintained its own military, its own command structure, its own interests. Some were even in conflict with each other. This should have made them easy prey. Our models predicted rapid collapse within 3.7 planetary rotations. The High Command approved immediate engagement. We began with surgical precision. Outer orbital installations destroyed. Satellite networks disabled. Communication relays interrupted. The first wave of drones descended into their upper atmosphere, mapping resistance points and identifying strategic targets. Their defenses activated quickly, but they were fragmented, uncoordinated. Some regions responded with force, others hesitated, and a few did nothing at all. It was exactly as we expected. Primitive, disorganized, doomed. Then something changed. Their communication spiked, not with clarity, but with intensity. Signals flooded every frequency. Military channels overlapped with civilian ones. Commands were issued, contradicted, reissued. It should have paralyzed them. Instead, it accelerated them. We began detecting launches, not from a centralized defense grid, but from scattered locations across the planet. Missiles, aircraft, orbital platforms, all activating independently, yet somehow converging toward our fleet. It made no sense. How are they coordinating? One of our tacticians asked. No one answered, because there was no answer. The first human ships reached us within a fraction of a rotation. They were crude, metallic hulls, inefficient propulsion, minimal shielding. By all measurable standards, they were no threat. We engaged them with automated defense systems. They were destroyed almost instantly, but more kept coming. Not in formation, not in waves, just coming. Then it happened. A human vessel, designation unknown, broke from its trajectory. It accelerated beyond safe operational limits, its structure beginning to fracture under the stress. Our systems flagged it as malfunctioning. We ignored it. That was our second mistake. The ship did not veer away. It did not attempt to evade. It did not fire. It aimed directly at one of our carriers. Collision imminent, the system warned. Adjust shields, a technician asked. The commander hesitated. Only for a moment. It will disintegrate before impact, he said. He was wrong. The human ship struck with catastrophic force, not because of its mass, but because of its intent. Its engines overloaded at the moment of impact, releasing all stored energy in a single devastating burst. The carrier's shields, designed to deflect sustained assaults, collapsed under the sudden, concentrated shock. The hull ruptured. Internal systems cascaded into failure. The vessel was lost within seconds. Silence filled the command deck. Not confusion, not fear, just silence, because what we had witnessed did not align with any known strategy. They sacrificed themselves, someone said. The word felt foreign. Sacrificed. Why destroy your own asset to eliminate a single enemy unit? The exchange was inefficient, illogical, wasteful, and yet it had worked. More ships altered their trajectories. More engines overloaded. More signals spiked with what our translators struggled to interpret. Phrases filled with urgency, emotion, finality. Some transmissions were directed outward, into open space. Messages, not commands, not data. Messages. Why are they broadcasting this? A communications officer asked. I focus on one signal, repeating, distorted but persistent. Our systems translated it imperfectly. For Earth, tell them, we tried. The rest dissolved into static. That was the moment I understood. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. We were not facing a species that fought to win. We were facing one that fought regardless. The commander ordered immediate recalibration of defensive protocols. All vessels were to maintain distance. Any approaching human craft was to be destroyed before it could close range. It was a rational response, a necessary one, but it came too late, because the humans had already shown us something we could not ignore. They were willing to die, not as a last resort, not as a failure, but as a strategy. And if a species is willing to destroy itself to stop you, then what exactly are you fighting? This is only the beginning of our failure, and I fear it was also the beginning of theirs. After the first collisions, our fleet changed. Not physically. We remain intact, formidable, superior, but something unseen had shifted within our command structure. Certainty was gone. In its place, calculation. Caution. For the first time since entering the Sol system, we began to question. High Command issued immediate revisions to engagement protocols. No human vessel was to be allowed within critical proximity. All incoming targets were to be neutralized at maximum range. Shield harmonics were adjusted to absorb sudden kinetic bursts. Drone formations expanded into layered interception grids. We adapted. We always adapt. That is why we conquer. The next wave of human resistance met a very different fleet. Their ships, those crude, desperate constructs, were intercepted long before they could close distance. Our weapons tore through them effortlessly. Explosions lit the darkness between planets like brief, insignificant stars. This time, there were no collisions, no surprises, just destruction. Clean, efficient, predictable. And yet, they kept coming. Why? One of the analysts asked, his tone sharper than before. They've already observed the outcome. Their strategy is ineffective. He was correct. Statistically, their actions had no chance of success. Each engagement resulted in total loss. Their fleet, if it could even be called that, was being erased faster than it could organize. And still, more launches, more signals, more ships. They are not attempting to win, I said, though I did not yet understand why I believed it. The words felt incomplete. We expanded our scans to include the surface of their planet in greater detail. What we saw only deepened confusion. Entire regions mobilizing independently. Military units deploying without centralized coordination. Civilian populations evacuating in some areas, while in others they remained. No uniform pattern. No singular strategy. And yet, when mapped across time, a strange consistency emerged. Every action, no matter how disorganized it appeared, contributed to one outcome. Delay. They're buying time, the tactical officer concluded. For what? The commander demanded. No one answered, because there was nothing left to prepare. Their orbital defenses were collapsing. Their outer colonies had already fallen. Their fleets, such as they were being annihilated. Time would not save them. And yet, they fought as if it would. Our fleet advanced deeper into the system. With each movement, resistance intensified, not in strength, but in frequency. Small attacks, harassment, interference. Never enough to damage us significantly, but enough to slow us. Enough to force recalculations. Enough to disrupt the perfection of our advance. Human vessels no longer aim for direct impact. They adapted. Some released clouds of debris, metal fragments, shattered hulls, even entire disabled ships, directly into our projected paths. Others detonated at a distance, not to destroy, but to blind sensors, to confuse targeting systems. One vessel split itself apart mid-flight, scattering into dozens of fragments, each carrying minimal propulsion. Individually, they were harmless. Together, they forced us to divert firepower, to track, to respond, to hesitate. Hesitation is inefficiency, the commander stated, but I could hear it in his voice. It was happening anyway. We intercepted more of their communications, not strategic commands, not structured orders. Fragments, voices layered over one another, urgent, strained, but unwavering. Hold position. Buy them time. Doesn't matter, just slow them. Tell command we're still here. And then again, that phrase, tell them we held. It appeared across multiple transmissions, different locations, different units, the same words. Held what? The analyst asked, frustration now evident. There is nothing left to hold. He was correct, by our understanding. There were no defensible positions remaining in orbit, no strategic advantage to maintain, no objective that could alter the outcome. And yet, they spoke as if something still mattered, as if the act of resisting itself had value. Our projections began to shift, not in outcome, in duration. What should have taken hours stretched into cycles. What should have been a clean, decisive conquest became drawn out, messy, unpredictable. They're not retreating. I realized they are, the tactical officer corrected. Their forces are falling back across all fronts. No, I said, they're not retreating, because retreat implies preservation, repositioning, survival. This was something else. Human units abandoned positions only after inflicting maximum disruption. They withdrew not to escape, but to force us forward, into new zones of resistance. Every fallback created another obstacle. Every loss became another delay. Every destroyed ship, every shattered structure, every fragment of debris, they left it all behind, not as remnants, but as weapons. It was not a defensive war. It was not an offensive war. It was a war of attrition against time itself. And for the first time, our models began to fail. We are still winning, the commander insisted. He was right. By every measurable metric, we were winning. Enemy losses, catastrophic. Territory controlled. Expanding. Fleet integrity, stable. Victory was inevitable, but inevitability began to feel distant. Another transmission broke through the noise, clearer than most. A single human voice, strained but steady. If you're hearing this, hold as long as you can. Doesn't matter if we fall. Just make them work for it. A pause. Then quieter. Tell them we held. The channel went silent. I replayed the message multiple times. Not for its content, but for its tone. There was no fear, no desperation, no expectation of survival, only resolve. That was when I understood something that unsettled me more than any weapon they had used. Humans did not need to believe they would win. They only needed to believe that we should not. And that belief was enough to keep them fighting. High Command issued the next directive shortly after. A decision born not from confusion, but from necessity. Orbital resistance is inefficient, the commander announced. We proceed to surface engagement. We would take the planet directly, end the delays, eliminate the source. It was a logical choice, the decisive one, the one that would restore order to the conflict. It was also our greatest mistake. We believed the surface would simplify the conflict. We were wrong before we even landed. Human worlds are not like ours. Virelian environments are controlled, balanced ecosystems, predictable weather cycles, stable terrain engineered for efficiency, every variable accounted for, every condition optimized. Earth was chaos made habitable. As our descent craft entered the atmosphere, the first disruptions began. Turbulence unlike any we had recorded, violent air currents shifting without pattern, electrical storms forming and dissolving within moments, clouds dense enough to scatter our scanning arrays. Sensor interference at 37%, one of the operators reported. Compensate, the commander replied. We are attempting to. We adjusted. We always adjust. But Earth did not remain constant long enough for adjustment to matter. Our first landing zone was selected for strategic value, an urban center previously neutralized by orbital strikes. Structures reduced to rubble, infrastructure destroyed. No detectable organized resistance. Perfect conditions. Or so we believed. The first wave deployed without incident. Armored units established perimeter control. Drone swarms spread outward, mapping terrain, identifying heat signatures, scanning for movement. Nothing. Silence. Zone secured. The field commander reported. And for a moment, it was. Then one of the drones went dark. No signal loss. No damage report. Just gone. Malfunction? The commander asked. Negative. Last data packet indicates abrupt termination. How? No answer. Seconds later, another drone disappeared. Then another, each one vanishing without warning. Thermal scans. I asked. Multiple fluctuations? The operator replied. Too irregular to classify. That was when the first attack came. Not from above. Not from a distance. From within the ruins. Human soldiers emerged from beneath collapsed structures, from concealed entry points, from spaces our scans had marked as empty. They moved quickly, coordinated but not in rigid formations. Small units, striking isolated targets. Precise, efficient, gone before retaliation could be organized. They're using the debris, the tactical officer said. No, they were living in it. Our forces responded immediately. Area suppression, wide-range energy dispersal, drone redeployment. The ruins burned, collapsed further, turned to ash. And still, the humans came back. They're retreating underground, one of the analysts reported. Then collapse the subsurface structures. The commander ordered. We did. It changed nothing, because the battlefield was not fixed. It was everywhere. Forests, urban wreckage, subterranean tunnels, even the air itself. Earth fought us alongside its inhabitants. In one region, dense vegetation blocked line of sight completely. Our targeting system struggled to lock onto anything. Movement came from every direction, brief, fleeting, lethal. In another, heavy rainfall flooded entire sectors within minutes, turning solid ground into unstable terrain. Our heavier units slowed, sank, became targets. Elsewhere, extreme heat signatures distorted sensor readings, masking human positions until they were already within striking distance. This planet is interfering with combat efficiency, the commander stated. No, I said quietly. They are using it, and they knew it better than we ever could. Our drones became liabilities. Our precision became weakness. Our reliance on data, on clarity, was turned against us. Humans did not fight for control of the battlefield. They changed it, constantly. Then came the encounters that shattered what remained of our understanding. A patrol unit, 8 armored soldiers, entered a partially collapsed transit structure. Scans indicated minimal activity. One human was detected, alone, injured. He is no threat, the unit leader reported. Proceed with capture, command instructed. The human did not flee. He did not hide. He stood, unsteady, blood visible across his form, one arm barely functional. Our soldiers advanced. The human moved. Not away. Forward. He is charging. The unit leader said, confusion evident. The human carried a device, crude, unstable, radiating energy far beyond safe thresholds. Our systems identified it instantly. Explosive. High yield. He will not reach detonation range, the unit leader stated. He was wrong. The human closed the distance faster than predicted, not because of speed, but because he did not hesitate. Not once. Even as our weapons fired. Even as his body absorbed impact after impact. Even as failure became inevitable. He kept moving, until the device detonated. The entire unit was lost. Silence followed the report, not just in that sector, across multiple channels. This behavior is illogical, one of the analysts said. Correct, the commander replied. Then why does it continue to succeed? No one answered. We began capturing humans shortly after, not for interrogation in the traditional sense, but for understanding. The first subject was restrained within a containment field, injured but stable. Our translation systems adapted quickly to their language patterns. State your designation. I asked. The human looked at me, not with fear, not with hostility, just awareness. I'm not telling you anything useful, he said. We are not seeking tactical information. I replied, we seek understanding. Your actions are inefficient. Your losses are unsustainable. Why do you continue to fight? He was silent for a moment. Then he laughed. It was not a sound I had encountered before in this context. Not mockery, not madness. Something else. You really don't get it, he said. Then explain. Another pause. He met my gaze. Because you're still here. That was all. No elaboration. No justification. No strategic reasoning. Just that. Because we were still there. I replayed those words countless times. Analyzed them. Cross-referenced them with every known model of conflict behavior. They did not fit. But out on the battlefield, they made perfect sense. Because humans were not calculating survival. They were not measuring victory. They were not even fighting for a future they believed they would see. They were fighting because we existed on their world. And that alone was enough. By the time we recognized the full implication of this, our forces were already being worn down, not by superior strength, not by advanced technology, but by something we had never accounted for. A species that did not need hope to continue. A species that did not require victory to resist. A species that would fight until nothing remained. And still, they would not stop. By the time we began to understand them, we had already lost, not in a single battle, not in a moment of catastrophic failure, but in something far worse for a species like ours. We lost control. At first, the signs were subtle. A delay here, a failed projection there. Units reporting outcomes that deviated from expected models by small, but growing percentages. Nothing alarming in isolation, but together they formed a pattern. Our predictions are degrading, one of the analysts admitted. Recalibrate, the commander replied. We have, repeatedly. The problem was not in our calculations. The problem was in our assumptions. Every model we had ever built relied on one fundamental principle. An intelligent species seeks to preserve itself. Humans did not violate this principle entirely, but they bent it, twisted it, expanded it into something we had never considered. They preserved not the individual, not even the unit, but the act of resistance itself. And that changed everything. We destroyed their cities. From orbit, entire population centers were reduced to ash. Infrastructure collapsed. Power grids vanished. Transportation networks disintegrated. By all known standards, this should have crippled them. Instead, it freed them. Without cities, they became harder to track. Without infrastructure, they became harder to disrupt. Without centralized systems, they became impossible to paralyze. They are decentralizing, the tactical officer reported. No, I said, they already were. We had mistaken fragmentation for weakness. It was not. It was resilience. Each region adapted independently. Each group fought in its own way. Different tactics, different strategies, different methods of survival. And yet, all aligned toward the same outcome. We pushed forward, because that is what we do, because retreat is not in our nature, because victory was still technically achievable. But every step deeper into their world made us weaker. Our supply lines stretched. Our units thinned. Our energy reserves, once more than sufficient, began to drain under constant engagement. Not large battles, not decisive clashes, endless ones, small attacks, ambushes, disappearances, reappearances. They never stopped. They cannot sustain this, the commander insisted. They are losing more than we are. He was right, numerically, strategically, logically, but logic was no longer the deciding factor. Time was, and time favored them, because every moment we remained on their world, they adapted further. We disrupted their communications. They replaced them with simpler ones, harder to trace, harder to silence. We targeted their leadership. They continued without it. We destroyed their weapons. They made new ones, cruder, simpler, more unpredictable. Everything we removed, they replaced with something we could not anticipate. And then they began to change, not physically, not biologically, but in how they fought. At first, they resisted. Then they adapted. Then they hunted. Our patrols started vanishing entirely. No signals, no debris, no trace. Equipment failure? The analyst suggested. No, I said. They're learning. We began receiving fragmented reports from surviving units. Descriptions that were inconsistent. They wait, one report stated. They watch. They don't engage until... Transmission lost. Another, they know our patterns. They move before we. Signal terminated. And another, from a unit commander, we are no longer advancing. We are being guided. Guided. At first, we dismissed it. Then we mapped our movements and saw the truth. We were not pushing them back. They were pulling us forward, into terrain that favored them, into regions where our advantages meant nothing, into environments where visibility, mobility, and coordination broke down. We thought we were conquering their world. We were being led through it. By the time High Command recognized this, our fleet was already collapsing, not destroyed, not annihilated, diminished. Ships lost not in grand battles, but through accumulated damage, resource depletion, and strategic misalignment. Every victory cost more than it should have. Every advance weakened us further, until eventually, victory was no longer inevitable. It was uncertain. That was when the first retreat order was considered. The concept itself was unthinkable. The Varelian fleet does not retreat. We do not withdraw. We do not abandon conquest once initiated. And yet, for the first time in recorded history, it was discussed. We can regroup, one commanders argued. Reassess, return with adjusted strategy. And what will be different? I asked. Silence, because we all knew the answer. Nothing. They would still be there, waiting, adapting, fighting, not for victory, not for survival, but because we existed. And that would never change. The final stage of our collapse was not marked by a decisive defeat. It was marked by exhaustion. Our forces, designed for efficiency and precision, were never meant for endless conflict without resolution. We required structure, predictability, conclusion. Humans required none of these things. They could fight in chaos, live in it, become part of it. And so they endured while we did not. I am transmitting this from what remains of our final vessel, hidden, drifting beyond the outer boundaries of their system. We are no longer being pursued. That, perhaps, is the most unsettling part. They did not chase us. They did not seek to finish us. They simply stopped, as if the moment we cease to be a threat, we cease to matter. I have reviewed all data, all encounters, all failures, and I have reached a conclusion. Humans are not the most advanced species we have encountered. They are not the strongest. They are not the most unified. But they possess something far more dangerous. They do not require reason to fight. They do not require hope to continue. They do not require victory to resist. All they require is a reason to begin. And once they do, they will not stop. If this message reaches the High Council, do not engage them. Do not test them. Do not provoke them. Because if you give them a reason, any reason, they will turn even their own destruction into a weapon. End of transmission.